What happens when the magic of Disney meets the wonders of Hawaii? In this episode, we'll share how to plan the perfect trip to Aulani, a Disney resort and spa. Welcome aboard Imagination Skyway, your guided tour through the worlds of Disney and Imagineering. I'm your host, Matthew Krull, and it's my job to explore the stories and places we love and the people who bring them to life. Today's episode is all about Aulani, a Disney resort and spa. Opening in 2011 on the island of Oahu, Aulani brings the magic of Disney to this tropical Hawaiian paradise. With an array of hotel rooms, amenities, pools, restaurants, shops, and a private beachfront lagoon, Aulani is one of the best Disney experiences you can share with your family away from the theme parks. In our conversation, we'll share everything you need to know about this resort, offer advice for your next stay, and discuss all the reasons you'll want to add this location to your Disney travel wish list. As you fasten your seatbelt, I encourage you to take out your mobile devices and search for Imagination Skyway on your favorite social media app. Better yet, if you're looking for ad-free episodes, bonus content, and the ability to comment directly on the podcast, head to patreon.com/imaginationskyway, where you can sign up for a free account or a premium subscription. And if this episode leaves you yearning for a trip to Disney or any other destination, reach out to our partners and sponsors at KMV Travel by visiting kmvtravel.com/skyway. As we begin our journey, please remain seated, keep your hands and arms inside the podcast at all times, and enjoy your journey aboard Imagination Skyway. When you think about traveling to a Disney destination, the top of mind for most listeners is going to be Walt Disney World, Disneyland, or perhaps an international Disney park, but it's usually going to revolve around a Disney park, perhaps a Disney cruise. There's a spot in the world that has one of the best Disney resorts in the world, and it's not attached to a park. It's nowhere near a park, in fact, and it's not even close to most other Disney destinations we think of around the world. And that spot is Aulani, a Disney resort and spa. We've done resort episodes before. This one, I think, is going to be very special because of the location of this property, the history, the ties to culture, and so much more. We'll talk all about that. But before I get ahead of myself, let me welcome back to the show Kelly Craig from KMV Travel. Kelly, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk about Aulani.
It's amazing that this is season 10 of the show. We've never discussed Aulani. And I think part of that is because, one, I've not been to Aulani yet. I've never been to Hawaii. It's certainly on my list. And two, I haven't had a guest on the show who has the same level of experience going to Aulani as you. And not only that, as of the time we're recording this, as the time it's public, it's probably going to be about a month old, but you got back from Aulani just a week or so ago. So it's still fresh in your mind, and you went so recently that I felt it was a great time for us to share this overview of the resort and discuss the reasons why families should consider heading to Hawaii, taking this trip. You know, I've spoken about other international locations before, primarily talking about Disneyland Paris. I've done that a few times now, but, we're going to go to the other side, the other ocean, and cross the other side of the United States, across the Pacific to get to Aulani. All right. So before we talk about the property itself, I love to start with rapid fire questions. So I have a few for you. And these are all focused on Hawaii, Aulani, Disney. I think it's going to be fun. So I'm going to start with the first question. Beach day or pool day?
Pool day. Specifically, if I can find a good umbrella somewhere. If anyone's seen me, I am very fair-skinned. So we have to be very careful with the sun. But you get the best of both worlds with Aulani.
I'm the same way, so I will have to second you on that. I'm also not a huge fan of getting sand everywhere. So the idea of a lounge chair under an umbrella, a good book, good snack, a little bit of pool time, relaxing pool time sounds like the perfect day for me. Okay, second one. What is your favorite? This is a three-parter technically, because I couldn't pick just one, so I'm giving you all three. What is your favorite meal, snack, and drink in Hawaii?
Oh, okay. So meal is gonna be ama ama at Aulani. It was amazing, and I know we're going to talk more about that, so I won't give away anything right now. Snack. I'm not a snack person, so I'm probably not the best one for this, but I'll say a snack if you are an adult. One of the kids' meals at Aulani was so cute because it was a tuna sandwich that was cut into a Mickey head. So snack, kind of maybe meal, maybe I'm cheating a little bit there. And then drink. Right across the street from Aulani is a restaurant that everyone goes to if you visit Aulani. It's called Monkey Pod, and they have some of the coolest drinks. And the one that I really liked was called the White Walker. Gin-based drink. So if we're going the alcoholic version, that's the
Yeah.
one I would pick. But if not, then like any of the juices, because everything is so fresh. It's just you feel like you didn't gain a ton of weight while you're in Hawaii because you're like, oh, I'm eating such good things.
Yeah, the island, right? It's just filled with fresh produce, and everyone who's gone to Hawaii, whether it's Aulani or anywhere else, I hear great things about all the fruits that are there. Of course, the pineapple-based drinks, any other like fruit that you can get on the island is just so fresh. So I
Yes.
can understand why you would say that. Um, okay, third one, Moana or Lilo and Stitch. I realize only one of them is technically located in Hawaii, but there's some cultural ties to Hawaii in Moana as well. So which of those two do you prefer?
Lilo and Stitch. I'm a 90s kid, so that was kind of when I grew up with it. Plus, I have a French bulldog, so he's like my little Stitch.
I love that. Now, I normally ask three rapid fire questions, but I followed your stories, and so I have to talk about this as well, or ask this question. How was your Delta One experience heading to Hawaii?
It was wonderful. I mean, I'm completely ruined now. So I got the Delta card after this, like
Oh, you didn't even
it,
have the Delta card. I see,
no,
I'm a huge
well,
Delta loyalist,
yes.
so yeah.
Yeah, it honestly, it was so nice. And I will say, like, yes, it is a splurge when you do something like that. But if you are able to kind of budget in advance for a trip like this, or just like a bigger trip, and you can make that happen, do it because you will just feel like you're on vacation from the time you leave the house. It is just so nice to have. And obviously, very, very lucky that I was able to do that. But this was a special one. So we definitely splurged a little bit and it was wonderful. Well worth it.
Plus, there's only a few locations that have this, but you got to enjoy the Delta One Lounge, which is a tier above the Delta Sky Club. So there's the traditional airport lounges you think of, but there is a lounge specifically for Delta One passengers. No one else can access it, and it is. I've been lucky enough. I have had the chance to go there too. I am a Delta loyalist. I get upgraded a little bit more because of that. So I was very lucky on an LA trip to get an upgrade on the return journey to New York and got to experience a Delta One Lounge, and it is truly next level. It really
It
is.
really is. Yeah. I did the massage chairs, anything they had. I was like, sign me up. Let's go. How many times am I going to get this experience?
Yeah, incredible. All right, so I know that was a little split from talking about Disney, but I had to just ask about it because I was looking at your stories as you were there and thinking, oh, I'm so glad she got to experience Delta One. That's great. So let's first discuss, this is usually my monologue. I'm going to try to keep this brief, but there's so much to talk about. The history of Aulani, a Disney resort and spa, for those who are not familiar. And I will probably defer to calling it Aulani from here on out, but the formal name of the property is Aulani, a Disney resort and spa. So Aulani opened incredibly 15 years ago, almost 15 years ago, August of 2011, as a Disney Vacation Club resort that also has some other regular hotel rooms as well that we're going to talk about. It's kind of a mixed property. And it sits on 21 acres of oceanfront property in Ko'olina. It's adjacent to a 9-acre crystal blue lagoon and white sand beach. Ko'olina itself is 17 miles from Honolulu International Airport. It's approximately 30 minutes from Waikiki. The Walt Disney Imagineers worked with local artisans and cultural experts to create the resort. And it was led by Imagineer and Disney legend Joe Rohde, who also many people might not know was raised in Hawaii. He was born in California, but he was raised in Hawaii. So that added another element of cultural immersion because he grew up on the island and he was aware. And of course, we all know his level of authenticity. He travels and researches, and he's so invested in the authenticity of properties like these. So you know it was done right. But this property was inspired by the natural wonders and rich traditions of Hawaii, celebrating the beauty, history, and welcoming spirit of the island. In fact, Aulani means messenger of a chief. And throughout the property, you could see contemporary Hawaiian art and design. There are, of course, Hawaiian activities and crafts like hula and lei making classes. You can get island excursions like surf lessons or hiking. And what's interesting is a bit like Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge or Disney's Beach Club or Disney's Polynesian Village Resort, kind of like I talked about a second ago, there's a split between traditional hotel rooms and Disney Vacation Club accommodations. So the resort has 351 hotel rooms, including 16 suites. And on top of that, there are 481 Disney Vacation Club units, including, this number astounded me, 19 grand villas, which is a huge number of grand villas for a property. And the other thing that amazed me, that I didn't realize this before doing research for this episode, is that, and maybe Kelly, you knew that. Kelly, you knew this. There is a room category for Disney Vacation Club points that is just hotel room, which is in addition to deluxe studios and 1- and 2-bedroom villas and 3-bedroom grand villas. So usually those are the ones you can get with points. And then if you want to stay in a quote unquote hotel room, like at Disney's Beach Club Resort or at Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge or at Disney's Polynesian Village Resort, like if you wanted a separate hotel room, unless you went through the exchanges of points and things like that, there's usually not a dedicated hotel room category on the points chart. So I thought that was fascinating that you could use points there with that hotel room category. But of course, you could also use cash for any one of these properties, and there's always offers that are available, which we'll talk about. The last thing I'll discuss before we talk about the property itself in terms of the history and the development of it is there was an interview in a Disney Parks blog article over 10 years ago where Joe Rohde explained a little bit more about the inspiration of the design. So first of all, Aulani has an arch logo, and Joe said that this curved arch is based on a traditional Hawaiian canoe house that's echoed in the framing of the Maka'ala lobby and the resort's physical layout. And in the lobby, Maka'ala does several things all at once. It is a warm and welcoming place that expresses the spirit of aloha, acceptance, and inclusion. And it also announces the resort. So when you arrived in Hawaii, it's a special, unique, and important place that you know that there are stories to be learned that you may not know. And it also suggests a feeling of elegance and artistry, which is consistent with true Hawaiian culture. And then the inspiration for the overall shape and design of the resort was designed to reflect the sense of a Hawaiian valley opening out toward the ocean from highlands to lowlands. And the organization of this has many connotations, which Joe says one is the Ahapua'a, the traditional organization of land that followed a watershed from the mountains to the sea and knitted all members of the community together in a working relationship and a functional, sustainable relationship to the land. Another one is a Hawaiian concept of time itself as flowing like fresh water from the past, which is in the mountains, to the future, which is in the sea. And then the architectural statements of Aulani follow this organizational layout. There's also Waikolohe, which means mischievous water, and that name is simply meant to connote the playful aspects of the springs, which could spray you from unexpected directions. And there's also the presence of the menehune, and it is true that along with this part of the Oahu coast, fresh water comes from springs. So the team wanted to reflect that, but in a fun and mischievous way. And the last thing he talked about was the canoes that are seen throughout the resort. And what he says, I'm going to read the direct quote here. We wanted to use little clues here and there to celebrate the great canoe tradition of Hawaii because these canoes are at the very heart of what makes Hawaiian culture Hawaiian. Without these canoes, there would be no Hawaiians at all. They express the highest form of artistry, engineering, symbolic meaning, purposefulness, and social cooperation that Hawaiian culture stands for. In particular, we wanted to celebrate the Hokolue, the canoe that awakened the Hawaiian cultural revival in the 1970s and continues today on its worldwide voyage. That gives a very in-depth, but hopefully not too in-depth, overview of the history of this property, the basic layout, the Imagineering elements, and the cultural ties. And that translates into everything we'll talk about today. So, Kelly, to start our conversation about the property itself, I'm curious what you love most about Aulani.
So I think that all the listeners will get this because you guys are my people. You're the Disney people. It's like a almost like a Disney trip when I was young, where it was these what Disney does so well, the entertainment, which travel is entertainment, but bringing in these educational aspects that you don't even realize are educational until after, and you're like, oh yeah, I did learn that. Actually, I know what the word for pig is in Hawaiian, or whatever it may be. But they did it so well throughout the entire resort. It does lean very heavily into the kind of what we would think of as like the traditional Hawaiian culture, the feel of the resort, everything, even the color scheme, but everything that Imagineers do so well. But I just felt like, I grew up going to Old Key West and to all these different resorts that I was very, very lucky to go with my family. And there was just a certain aspect of like I don't know, the Disney way. And it's kind of hard to even put my finger on exactly what it is at Aulani, but they do it so well. And I know that, Matt, when you go, you're going to say, I totally get what you're saying. I don't know how to put it into words either, but it's just Disney at its best. I think this has become my favorite Disney resort. And, I've been lucky to go to a lot of different Disney resorts, and they just do it so well here. The service level, of course, is exceptional as always. The dining, every single piece of it is just so well done. And I really do like the way that they have the two towers where you have kind of your traditional hotel rooms, and then the other tower is your DVC rooms. It just makes it so much easier for families that are a bit larger. I come from a family of five, so a traditional hotel room was really difficult as we got older, to have those options. Whereas a lot of hotels, when you are looking to go to non-Disney locations or non-timeshare locations, it can be a little bit more difficult to get those. So it was nice to have that option where we were traveling with another couple. We could get a two-bedroom DVC villa, and we were able to kind of have our own room. Plus, we had a full kitchen. So I think of course, it's Joe Rohde, so we know he took everything into account when he was looking through everything. But they just did an exceptional job. When my husband already is like, okay, so when do we go back? Our next trip there.
I love that. That's great to hear that Pat had that same enthusiasm for it too. I think when you are planning a trip like this, the stereotypical image is perhaps a couple going to Hawaii, a group of adult friends perhaps going to Aulani together, or a family with older kids. And I know that most people listening in those categories will get the reasons why it's a strong fit for them. I'm curious, especially because of the time difference, the flight involved, especially coming from the East Coast, and we could talk about this a little later on as well. Do you feel this is also a trip worth taking with young kids, whether those be infants, toddlers, anyone in elementary school, perhaps kindergarten, first, second grade? Is that something that you think is feasible? I know you didn't do this trip with kids, but how easy or difficult do you think it is? And do you think it's worth going with young kids?
Yeah. So I've planned vacations to Aulani for families that have infants that, are under 3 years old, and that have a wide range of ages in their families. And I think, we've had this conversation before, Matt, when it comes to traveling with your family, it's so dependent on your children and the way you like to travel. I think like for your girls, you'd probably be fine because they've had all these experiences traveling. This wouldn't be the first trip I would say to do for a family coming from the East Coast with little ones, just because, again, that time change, it is rough, I will say. Like that was, we're still kind of like getting over that coming home. But I will say that if you are thinking about going to Hawaii with children, younger children, or even teenagers, whatever it may be, this is a really nice destination to go to with them because it is going to be close by to things that you can get to outside of Ko Olina. But Ko Olina itself is just beautiful. And all these different activities that they have. It's almost like going on a Disney cruise where there's activities that are great for the entire family. There's a kids club for some of the little ones. There are going to be activities that are going to be specific to younger children, going to be areas, splash pads for them. So if you are thinking about a Hawaii vacation with children, I would 100% recommend this. But always thinking about, okay, what is it, how does my family like to travel? How are my kids going to be on a flight? Coming from like the West Coast, this is actually a pretty easy trip to do. But if you are thinking about coming from the East Coast, it is going to be a little bit of a little bit of a challenge that you'll have to kind of overcome, but well worth it, I will say.
Yeah, it's the reverse conversation to Disneyland Paris. I have this conversation with my cousins and aunt and uncle who live in Arizona because for them, they take many trips to Hawaii because it, for them, is a time difference change, but it's almost like for me coming from New York, going to the Caribbean. It's accessible. It's a flight that's a few hours. It's a little longer to go to Hawaii, but it's very easy. When you think about going to Europe from the West Coast, there's, just going to London from New York is a 5 or 6 hour time difference depending on the time of year. But then you tack on another 2-3 hours coming from the West Coast, depending if it's mountain time or Pacific time. That could be a very big adjustment to your circadian rhythm and to just the jet lag and the time that it takes to get there. So yes, from the West Coast, much easier than coming from the East Coast. But we'll talk about that in a little bit because I have a question about that towards the end. But once you arrive at Aulani, I know we're spending a lot of time talking about the surrounding aspects of the vacation before getting to it, but I promise this is the last question before we start talking about the property itself. Once you arrive at Honolulu International Airport, I'm assuming anyone listening to this, that's where you're going to come into if you're visiting Aulani. So if you're not renting a car, what are the best ways to get to the hotel?
Yeah, so it's going to be kind of similar if you are coming from the West Coast and are used to Disneyland, where there's not that kind of like traditional, okay, we take Mears Connect to get there. Similar to that. So there are some shuttle services that Disney partners with. Just in terms of recommending using them, there's a taxi service that you can get set up. There's a shuttle service called the Hele Hele shuttle service. So we actually rented a car, and I found that was really nice to do. But if you don't want to do that, they do have those other options. Plus, I always recommend, we work with a company called Black Lane that basically is across the world. It's a private car service. That's a nice option to do too, but there definitely are easy ways to get there. So even though they don't have kind of the Aulani shuttle, quote unquote, very easy to get there, quick drive. If you are going to be doing a car service or you're driving yourself, you can always try to make a stop to grab some food in advance, which I would definitely recommend because if you do have a DVC room or you just have a little, cooler in your room, it's nice to have some food, drinks in there as well because prices of food can be a little bit expensive because you're in a resort location. So it's nice to kind of have like water bottles or anything else that you might need there. So that's a good stop on the way to the resort.
You mentioned rooms, and that's where we're going to head to next. There are, as I mentioned before, a few room categories. There's actually several room categories. You have the, it's called quote unquote a hotel room. So a traditional hotel room. There are also 16 suites. I don't think we're going to go through what all of those are, but there are suites that are available. And then there are the Disney Vacation Club accommodations on that tower side, which include the deluxe studio, the 1-bedroom villa, 2-bedroom villa, and 3-bedroom grand villa. We've gone through what those mean in other Disney Vacation Club resort overviews. So essentially the deluxe studio is the closest to a hotel room, but you're going to get some slight differences, including a kitchenette and other things that are a little different about the deluxe studio. And then one bedroom villa is going to have the living space with the one bedroom, two bedroom will add on the second bedroom, and then three bedroom grand villa. Those are massive. They are literally like three bedroom suites with a full kitchen and living room and dining room. It's like staying in a three bedroom apartment for the duration of your stay. So can you speak a little bit more about the hotel room options and what you generally recommend for families?
Yeah, so like we said, it's really nice here because you do have so many options. And even though there is the DVC tower, if you are booking on a cash rate, like I didn't go on DVC points. You can stay in the DVC tower as long as there's availability. So the resort rooms are going to be great. You really are just, you don't need those extras. So if you do have a family of four, a lot of times people will kind of try to decide between, do I want a deluxe studio? Do I want a resort room? What it normally will come down to is, do you want that little kitchenette? And you're okay with kind of having one of the pull-out beds, a Murphy bed, or do you want two beds? Because that's going to be kind of that distinction there. So if you want those two queen beds, it's great to kind of do the resort rooms that they have. If you do want that additional space of having a full kitchen, a washer dryer in your unit, then that's where you're going to want to start to think about that one bedroom, two bedroom, three bedroom villa. I will say that was great for us to have. We loved having the kitchen because we would make our coffee and tea in the morning. We'd sit down and have some breakfast. We used the washer dryer because, we didn't want to have to clothes for, 8 days. And just having bathing suits and things like that, like just such a nice amenity to have. So definitely something to think about there. And then those suites are going to be if you kind of want that a little bit more of a upgraded stay, a kind of luxury. You're kind of knowing that you're going to have a really great view with that. I will say none of them have bad views. There are a number of different views that you can get. So there is the kind of standard view, your island garden, poolside garden, partial ocean, and ocean. Ocean, of course, is going to be the one that sells out the soonest. So if that's a must do, you really need to book that as far in advance as you can. We were in an island garden view, which means that we were kind of looking out over an area that was a grassy area. The area that we were looking at over actually was where they do the luau. So on the nights that the luau was there, we kind of got to see a little bit of that. We also did go to the luau, so that was kind of fun. But you really don't have a bad view no matter where you look, because even on the outside where you might be looking out over the parking deck, you have a beautiful view of mountains on that side too. So I wouldn't look at it and say, okay, we can't do this because the ocean view is out of our budget. You're still going to have a view no matter where you stay.
That's wonderful. And it gives you a better picture of the different types of vacations and experiences you can get from this. So anything from just like a family vacation or a couple going to Hawaii to a honeymoon, staying in one of those, perhaps staying in a suite, or an anniversary, or large birthday celebration, or it could go all the way up to a family reunion, bachelorette party, staying in those like 3-bedroom grand villas. Like there's a lot of accommodation options that are for lots of different families. The nice thing about all the Disney Vacation Club rooms, and I find this very valuable because I am a very detail-oriented person, and I care deeply about the experience and trying to immerse myself in what that's going to be like before I even go. And photos and videos can give you some idea, but even better than that, I think the best way to truly get a sense of what your room is going to be like is when you go to the Disney Vacation Club website and you select the properties drop down, or Disney Vacation Club Resorts, I should say, drop down. You can select any Disney Vacation Club resort, and you click on that. There's a little subcategory. I'm gonna try to link to it actually in the description of this podcast episode. But there's a rooms and points category, and then it'll show you every different room type. In addition to having pictures, there are virtual tours that are essentially like those 360-degree walkthroughs where you can kind of go from point to point and click where you want to go next in the room, turn around 360 degrees, look up, look down, look everywhere. So those always, for me, give me the best idea of the space and the layout and really give you a good sense of the options. So they don't have that for, in this property, the hotel rooms or the suites, but for those deluxe studios and 1, 2, 3 bedroom villas, you can actually see how it's laid out. And to Kelly's point, you do not need to be a Disney Vacation Club member to access this. You can absolutely, if there's availability, book that room in, in a traditional way, booking with cash, credit card, whatever you want to go with. So I just wanted to plug that if you do want to get a better sense of what the rooms actually look like, those virtual walkthroughs are really the best, better than YouTube videos, better than photos, to really get a sense of what the rooms are going to look like. All right, let's talk about the rest of the property. So I want to start with, you said pool day over beach day. Let's start with the pools. And the Waikolohe Valley pool area rivals any Disney pool. Certainly, I think, better than even Stormalong Bay. I haven't been to this pool area, but it just looks incredible. Like better than any Disney pool I've ever seen. So can you talk a little bit more about the Waikolohe Valley and the pool activities that are available there?
Yeah, so this is kind of like the fun pool, like the family pool. One of our friends that was with us, he is always like, okay, you guys want to watch me go down the water slide? And like, this was the pool he wanted to be at the whole time. It's 8,200 square feet, zero entry pool, which I love that for kids. I think it's just so much easier for families. There's going to be a lounge poolside area, so you can kind of just hang out there, lots of seating. There is a tunnel body slide where you kind of go through a volcano. They also do some pool parties over here. So this is like, again, the fun pool. There's also going to be a lazy river that kind of connects to this area. So you have another slide, so 2 slides over there. One's going to be the body slide, one is the slide with your rafts, and then the lazy river. So I spent most of my time in the lazy river, just kind of laying there. But it is kind of cool because you go around, you get to kind of see different areas of the resort as you're just kind of hanging out. And it never felt super busy either, which was really nice because that is always concerned with the family pools, the areas where everyone's going to be. The only time that you were like, okay, there's, I can see everyone here, is when they did like the pool parties. So if you want to avoid that, just avoid that pool party time. But there's also all different other pools there. So if you kind of want a different feel, then there's going to be other options for you too.
That's great. Did you get to see the menehune throughout the pool area?
Yeah, so I think it's like 300 menehune that are throughout the entire resort. And this was like my activity where I would find them. I was really good at finding them, and I took quite a bit of pride in that. So like in the elevator, you'd see them around the pool area. But it's just, like those were the types of things that I loved, where it was the detail, exactly like you're saying, that was all around there, and that they did have that kind of area just for the little ones. The Menehune, oh my goodness, I want to make sure I call it the right thing. Menehune Bridge. So it's for children under 48 inches, and it's 2,100 square feet, excuse me. So lots of play areas, lots of spaces that they can kind of enjoy. 2 water slides, interactive water elements, and again, lots of seating right there. So if, mom or dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever it may be, wants to kind of hang out while somebody else is with the little one or they're out there playing, it makes it really easy for families to do that.
Yeah. And you said this is a great area for families, kids. And like I said, there's definitely going to be a category of listeners who are going as adults traveling, without kids. So what are the best pool options for adults who maybe don't want that that loud family, not that it's always loud, but that maybe don't want to have that type of environment. I'm thinking like when you are looking at, I'm going to go back to Stormalong Bay again, there are also quiet pools at Yacht and Beach Club. So are there other options for pools at Aulani for people wanting a quieter, more adult-like experience?
Yeah, so this is a new addition or kind of change that they've made in the past few years. So it used to be there was no specific adult only pool, but now the Grotto, excuse me, is adult only. So it's going to be that's going to be kind of the infinity like water whirlpool. And then you also have the Wailana pool, which is adult only. So that's where we spent a lot of our time because we were two couples that were going together. And I will say our one friend is like, okay, there's when there gets to be a lot of children, he kind of needs to like step away. So it was nice that we had the Wailana pool where we could kind of go hang out. We kind of use that as like our base. And then our other friend was like, okay, let's go ride the water slides. And we could easily get over there. Also, lots of food options right there too. So no matter, even though it's a big property, it's not a property that's going to feel overwhelming or like you have to walk miles to get anywhere.
That's really great. And I'm sure there are perhaps parents listening who are thinking, I love my kids, but there are times where perhaps we want our own solo time as parents to unwind. And what's great about Aulani is a lot like Disney Vacation Club, sorry, Disney Cruise Line. There are places there that kids can go so that you can have separate kid and adult time. And that place is Auntie's Beach House. I was going to ask you about this later, but it feels like an appropriate place to ask about it. Can you talk a little bit more about Auntie's Beach House? This is really unique for a Disney resort. I can't think of another property, at least not in the United States, that has something like this that's a Disney hotel.
So it's going to be similar to like if you are a D member or you've stayed at a DVC resort before, the kind of community areas that they have. But Auntie's Beach House is going to be specifically for ages 4 to 12. And there's going to be different activities that take place. So there's a lot of complimentary programming, which is really nice. So no additional charge. It's all included in your resort stay. That might be like Disney character visits, arts and crafts, Disney movies, different things. And then there's also going to be premium experiences. Some of these premium experiences also, if you're thinking, well, I have a child who's over 12, there's all going to be different ones for other age groups that will take place at the community hall area. So these ones are all ones that you'll have to sign up for in advance. And there are specific dates that all this will open. You pay in advance as well. But those are nice options too if you want, if you've seen on TikTok, everyone shows it, the Mickey ear making. That's going to be one of those activities. But again, there are those complimentary options as well that you can take advantage of if your kids kind of fall within that range of 4 to 12.
Yeah, that's really great. The wonderful thing about this property, is you're probably getting a sense from this conversation, is that it goes beyond a traditional Disney resort hotel. And one of the other reasons is it is located on the ocean. As we talked about, there's oceanfront views. And beyond that, there is a dedicated space on the beach for guests at Aulani. And in particular, not only the beachfront, but there's this lagoon, the Ko'olina Lagoon, which looks amazing. Can you talk more about the Ko'olina Lagoon and perhaps what some of the activities are at this sort of like beachfront, secluded lagoon area?
So I think the one thing that was nice about going and visiting Aulani for me was actually seeing how that's all set up. Because the way this you kind of have Ko'olina and the lagoon around there is you're going to have three resorts. So Aulani's kind of right in the middle. And then if you're looking at Aulani, on the left side is going to be a Marriott timeshare. And then on the right side is going to be the Four Seasons Oahu. So Aulani and the Four Seasons are very close to each other. Four Seasons kind of has a smaller portion of the beach that's, enclosed for them. And then Aulani has a very large portion of the beach because, of course, it has a lot of rooms, a lot of families that are visiting. And there are going to be chairs towels, everything like that is going to be provided to you. Each day when you do stay at Aulani, you will go to a specific location at the pool area to get a wristband that just notates that you are an Aulani guest, that you can be there because you can kind of walk all around the lagoon on a walkway, which is a really nice activity to do if you just kind of want to see the rest of the resorts and also just enjoy how beautiful the water is there. But in terms of activities, there's basically all the water sports that you would imagine that you can set up through Aulani. So, of course, paddle boarding, all those different things that you could enjoy. They do also yoga down there as well in the morning. They do have surf lessons, different things like that. So, do you want to like do all the different things? There's lots of different options that you can set up both in advance, and then you can, of course, always see if there is availability that day. There's kind of like a surf shack right by the entrance to the beach as you're walking down, but very easy to go between the beach and the pools. So if, maybe you have some teens that they want to go to the pool and you want to stay at the beach or, vice versa, it's pretty easy to do that and still feel like, you can kind of keep an eye on everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. Let's head inside for a second because there's so much to talk about with leisure, amenities, recreation, and this resort is called a Disney Resort and Spa. So there's a spa here as well. Did you get the chance to experience it? Whether or not you did, could you talk more about the spa at Aulani?
So I didn't get a chance to experience it this time, but I have had many people that have gone. We were actually staying at the Four Seasons next door the second half of our trip. So we did the spa there. And I did say to my husband on the last day, "Ugh, we should have done the spa at both places, because just let's be bougie and see, compare them." But didn't get a chance to do Alani, but absolutely beautiful spa. We did get to kind of go in and just take a look at it. So full service spa salon. There's actually a salon that's specifically for the little ones called Painted Sky that you can do, and that's really cute if you do want to, you have kind of like 4 to 12-year-olds is going to be great for something like that. But the spa itself also does have some areas that you can go, the relaxation rooms, some whirlpool areas, things like that. So really beautiful area. If you do have a chance to do it, I definitely recommend it. It's probably my biggest regret of not doing that during our stay. But that, of course, is going to be an upcharge if you do if you do decide that you want to make a reservation there.
Yeah, it's nice to have that available on this property. We talked about the traditional recreation, I suppose, that you would get at this hotel. Is there anything else on property that we missed when it comes to recreation? And then the non-traditional aspect of a Disney resort is there's also lots of off-property recreation and excursions. And I know that if you're doing this a la carte, we could spend hours talking about what there is to do on this island. But I'm thinking specifically about any excursions or activities that are offered directly through the hotel that you can either book through the concierge or in advance, or things that Disney coordinates or helps to coordinate beyond just like taking your car and driving to one of the many places you can visit on the island. So again, just to recap, anything we missed in terms of recreation on property and the official off-property excursions or recreation that Disney can help you arrange.
So I think one of the cool things that we didn't talk about that kind of falls into that grouping is they do offer a resort tour on select days. So if you kind of want to go and learn more about the resort itself, that's a nice option to do. So one of the cast members will take you around and kind of show you some highlights of the resort. There is, and this kind of falls into activities, but also into dining, the luau. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the things that you can do off property that you can book through Disney are pretty expansive. So a lot of my families, when they do decide they're going to do a trip like this, they don't want to rent a car because they don't want to have that, the additional cost of parking, anything or just don't want to deal with it because they're on vacation. So this is a nice option because everything is right through them. You can do things like going to Pearl Harbor, to the Dole Plantation, Diamond Head, different things that are kind of like the must-dos when you're on Oahu. So those are very easy to book in advance. You can always speak to somebody when you're at the resort as well to get those set up if there is availability. But then, of course, if you don't do it through Disney, there's a ton of different tour groups that we work with that we can kind of help get set up for you. Or, like you said, you can rent a car. That's what we did. And we wound up going to Pearl Harbor. And then we also did the Jurassic Park tour at the Kualua Ranch. So things are very accessible from Aulani, which is nice. So it doesn't have to be like your entire day is taken up with a tour and then you kind of lose out on like pool time or something.
Yeah, it's nice. That's your park is Hawaii, right? You're getting to explore this particular island and this culture. So it's, and I'm saying Hawaii because it's the state. This is technically Oahu. But that's it's great that you can experience so much going from this hotel. You queued me up for dining, and we teased it out in the beginning how incredible the food is when you go to Hawaii and when you stay at Aulani. So, what are the dining options here, and what are your top picks for dining?
So there's a lot of different options, and you honestly could stay at Aulani for 5 nights and never eat anywhere else, and not feel like you didn't have enough options. So the ones that are going to be at Aulani, the first is my favorite, Ama Ama. So it's an open air restaurant. I highly recommend making this for like a special dinner. It is going to be a prefixed meal, so 4 courses, and it is closed on select nights. So you just want to check that before you go ahead and kind of get that set for your plans. But incredible restaurant. The dining experience was wonderful. The food was incredible. Some people I think do look at the menu and get a little nervous about if they're going to like the food or not. But I will say, very similar to any kind of upscale Disney dining experience. If you say to them, I don't eat shellfish or whatever it may be, they're going to work with you and their chefs are going to work with you to create something that you're going to love. So highly recommend doing that.
That's great.
The other, yeah, it's exceptional. The other sit down option you have, so table service option, is Makihi, the Bounty of the Islands. And this is going to be open for breakfast as well as dinner. Breakfast is going to be a character dining. So we did this one. I will say it's very similar to kind of like a Topolino's feel, where you kind of have the 3 course meal. They'll bring things out to the table, and then you kind of pick your entree, set price, and then you get to meet Mickey and then 2 or 3 other characters that will be walking through. And there's some Hawaiian music being played. And again, open air, a little less close to the beach than Ama Ama is. So the view is more of the pool versus the beach. But then same kind of experience for dinner minus the characters. When we talk about a quick service option, there's going to be a few different ones. So ulu buffet is kind of just a self-serve items. You can get like acai bowls, oatmeal in the morning, different things like that, sandwiches in the afternoon. So that's kind of like your go-to quick service option. Off the hook, similar. It's more like an open air bar area, but that also has some meals. These two are not going to require reservations or anything like that. So good ones to go to if you just need to grab something quick. And another one of my favorites was the Olelo Room. So this is a bar. It is open in the morning for, I believe it's Marsala is they're basically like donuts that they have there, and they're very, very good. But then in the evening, it does a bar and lounge. So really great sushi there. If you are looking for something that's a little bit more filling, then don't want to do makihiki or ama ama, this is a great option for you. But olelo means word or to converse in Hawaiian. So it celebrates the Hawaiian language. So all over you'll see different images and then what the Hawaiian word would be for it. So it's a cool one to go to with kids, even though it is a bar and lounge, because there's a lot for them to be engaged with. Pool bars, of course, tons of those to be had while you're there. And then the last one is the luau. So that one's going to be an experience in and of itself. This is going to be something that we'll book up in advance. People come from other resorts to come to this luau, and it's called Kauai. So it's journey through the Hawaiian history and discover its deep cultural roots in canoe exploration. So just like Matt, you had talked about in the beginning, that kind of really does run through the whole resort, but also through the story that they tell through this luau. And it is a traditional luau, so you'll get, all different types of entertainment that will take place in it. And you are going to get a buffet meal. It's going to be open bar, kind of select drinks that they have. But then in advance of that, they also do some educational offerings. So you learn about how to play the ukulele or, oh gosh, what were the other ones? There was basically like lei making, all different kind of setups. So this is a really great one if you do have kids that are interested in it. But I will say it's not very Disney focused. Mickey and Minnie do come out for maybe like 30 seconds, but it is going to be very much a traditional luau. Definitely recommend it. Doing that. There's general seating available as well as preferred seating. Preferred seating gets you a little bit further up. You don't have to stand in line for drinks. So it definitely is worth it if you do have that extra kind of like $30 that it will cost for that. But I think that's everything. I know there's so much at Aulani to talk about, especially when it comes to dining.
Yeah, so much. For something like the luau that does sell out really far in advance, how far out would you recommend booking that?
So I believe that one starts 3 to 4 months in advance. They this is something where you want to keep an eye on it because it will kind of open up for the whole month at a certain date. So I would just kind of keep an eye out starting like 5 months out to see when that's going to open. Lonnie has very different dates. There's a lot of different dates for different things that will open. So if you do have questions about that, even if you haven't booked through me, please reach out and I'm happy to help you kind of navigate that because that was one of the things where, I always have to remind myself which dates we're kind of at for those different things.
Yeah, well, just another reason to book with you because it is a little more complex than the typical 60-day ADR at Walt Disney
Yes.
World. To recap, to wrap up, I have a few wrap up questions here. First, as we discussed, there is so much to do here. So I know there are a lot of activities you could do beyond the property on Oahu, or even island hopping to other parts of Hawaii. But thinking just about the Aulani experience, how long do you think you could spend on this property without leaving the hotel? If you really wanted an Aulani trip, almost like a Disney cruise line, where you have days at sea, you're just looking to maximize your time at the hotel. How long would you recommend somebody consider staying here?
So I would say probably 3 to 4 nights, thinking about the fact too that your flight schedule might impact that as well. So like we got in at around 7 p.m. our first night. So we kind of lost obviously that whole day. And then we were checking out at 11 on the one day. So you want to think too about how much time you're really going to have there. I would also think about what your family likes to do. So for me, I felt like I didn't have enough time there because I like to do everything that they offer. I want to eat at every place. I want to, enjoy every pool. I want to do every single tour that they have, whatever it may be. So for me, it probably would be a little bit longer than that even. But it really is going to depend on what you enjoy doing. If you are people that just want a true resort vacation, you could probably spend 7 days here and never want to leave because there is just so much to do and so many different areas to explore.
That's great. I love that they offer so much for you. Now, earlier on, I mentioned to East Coasters, I had a question I was going to bring up later. So if you stuck with me for the 40 minutes since I first brought that up, here it is. For people who are coming from the East Coast of the US or perhaps even further, one of the common ideas that I hear, and I have been hearing since Aulani opened, is to break up the trip by stopping at Disneyland, because there are few flights. There's like, I think even on Delta, there's one flight a day that goes direct from JFK to Honolulu, but most others are going to, transfer, or have a layover and another stop. So if you're going to lay over in LA, for instance, which is a common layover stop, you might as well go to Disneyland. So is there value, you think, in stopping at Disneyland and here's part two of the question, would you do it on the way out to Aulani or on the return journey?
I think there's definitely a benefit, just from a standpoint of breaking up the trip, and not even taking into account that I would just obviously love to go to
Of
Disneyland
course,
any
yeah.
chance I get. Yeah, right. But no, I think that there definitely is. I think coming back for me has. I've been to Hawaii twice, and one time it was a direct flight, and even with the direct flight, body was still a mess. It didn't matter. So I would probably say going on the back end is nice because you can kind of take us, a little bit easier of a step transitioning back into the East Coast time zone. But I think it's definitely worth it to consider, even if you do maybe, 2 nights in Disneyland. It will just make it a little bit easier. Plus, once you leave Aulani, you're just going to have that Disney depression. So, you go stop at Disneyland, and it kind of you ease in a little bit easier. So I do think it's a great option. And if you are flying into LAX, it's not terribly far to get to Disneyland, and pretty easy to get back over. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I had a feeling you would say yes. I was just curious for you to talk through that a little bit. Um, Sort of final question here. What advice would you offer, in addition to everything we mentioned, is there any other advice you would offer for someone heading to Aulani for the first time? And is there anything we missed that you think is worth mentioning?
I don't know if there's anything that we missed. I think there's, always, if someone were to speak to me specifically about their family, there's probably things that I would say, oh, you have to do this, or, whatever it may be. But I think the biggest thing that I would recommend is one, to plan, but also not to plan at the same point. I think all of us as Disney people, we're so used to having to be like, okay, at this time I have to be up and I have to do this and I have to do that. You can do that here, which is kind of the nice thing because, there's all these character meet and greets that are going to happen at specific times. There's, the tours that you get different things at the community hall. So if you are a person that loves that, this is going to be kind of like the perfect balance between a resort vacation and a Disney vacation, where you can do that. You can go onto the app each day and see what characters are going to be meeting, figure out your plans for the day. But I also would just encourage people not to take a step back too. And I say the same thing with when people go on a Disney cruise. It's okay to just sit and relax. And that's so kind of out of the ordinary for us sometimes as Disney fans because we just want to keep going, going, going. But some of the best memories that we have from Milani, we're just sitting and talking to a cast member or just sitting and talking to a fellow guest that was there, and learning more about them because that's the other thing. We were meeting people from Alaska, from, all over the world that were coming to Aulani. And, we all had this shared love of Disney, of the island, whatever it may be. So I would just recommend kind of maybe you have to plan in a little bit of time to just relax, but also look into the options that are there. I do think one of the biggest challenges that people have sometimes with planning an Aulani vacation is knowing all those dates of when they need to book things. So like I said, please reach out if I can help you. Even if you aren't booked through me, I would love to still give you that information because I don't want you to miss out on that.
Well, that's great advice. And that now leads me to making sure people know where they can connect with you. I think most listeners of the show, you heard it in the beginning of this episode as well, know that you can go to kmvtravel.com/skyway to reach out to Kelly, and to her team and to start the process of booking a vacation to Aulani or anywhere else. But where else could people go to connect with you, Kelly?
Yeah, so definitely reach out there if you are interested. But you can always connect with us on Instagram for KMV Travel. We're at KMV Travel Co. Same on Facebook. We're also on YouTube. And if you'd like to reach out to me personally on Instagram, I'm at Kelly's Magical Vacations. And definitely let me know you came through Matt because I absolutely love working with Imagination Skyway listeners. I think anyone who has worked with me knows I get just as excited as you do when you reach out and you say we're going to start talking about Disney because I get to just geek out about Disney with you guys. So I really do appreciate it.
I've heard the flip side from listeners, so I appreciate that. Well, this has been great, Kelly. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me. Rapid fire question. What is your next trip that's not to Walt Disney World, or you're always at Walt Disney World? That's not to Disneyland.
Yeah. So next one, we are going to be doing concierge level on the Wish Disney cruise. But the one that I'm most excited for, I'm very excited for that, but I'll be going to Disneyland Paris and doing an Adventures by Disney Paris Escape. So very excited to be sharing about that experience too.
We will definitely talk about that when you get back. So we'll have to plan that. Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Kelly. Welcome back to Imagination Central. Before you exit this episode, remember to follow Imagination Skyway on social media and share the show with anyone who might enjoy listening to our program. And remember, for ad-free episodes and bonus content, you'll want to sign up at patreon.com/Imagination Skyway. When you're ready for your next vacation, also remember that listeners of Imagination Skyway can get rewarded for booking a trip to Disney, that includes Aulani, in 2026 through KMV Travel. Simply fill out the form at kmvtravel.com/Skyway and make sure that you select Imagination Skyway under the How Did You Hear About Us question to be eligible for a special gift from the team. Terms and conditions apply. As you disembark, please remember to remain fully seated until the podcast comes to a complete stop, then gather your belongings and watch your head and step as you exit. Thank you for joining me aboard Imagination Skyway, and remember, if we can dream it, we can do it.